This is the three things with your host, Gene Church. Today's topic, President Trump's return to the White House from Walter Reed Military Medical Center and the press's response to his illness. White House physician Dr. Sean Conley says that President Trump may not entirely be out of the woods yet in his fight against the novel coronavirus, but said that the clinical status supported his discharge from Walter Reed Military Medical Center and a safe return to the White House. From the moment that the press first heard about President Trump and the First Lady testing positive, there has been a level of excitement and glee not equaled by anyone since the Klan was excited over the death of JFK. Liberals throughout the country were tweeting with joy, claiming that Ruth Bader Ginsburg had won her first case with God. Of course, that begs the question whether someone who was as pro-abortion as Ginsburg was could possibly make it to heaven, or that God would see smoting the president as a proper response towards someone wanting to see abortion stopped. Have you noticed that liberals, typically lacking in the numbers to claim to believe in a higher power, sign on for one when it comes to taking on their enemies? To begin with, the press went wild with speculation that Trump could be a super spreader and was responsible for injecting large numbers of, luckily for them, Republicans. Of course, assuming all these cases did come from one source, it is far more likely to have come from Hope Hicks, who openly contracted the virus before anyone else. Sadly, in this entire case, the only super spreaders we've seen is amongst the press and their BS. The next issue to get to the collective panties in a wad situation with the press was an anonymous person providing pizza to the group of Trump supporters praying for the president outside of Walter Reed. Did the money come from federal taxes? Why can't he act like everyone else? Has he infected anyone else at the hospital? Then yesterday, President Trump, with the permission of his physicians, rode in his vehicle by the crowds and waved. How selfish. Doesn't he know he could infect the Secret Service? Never mind that the physicians arranged for the travel. The agents wore N95s and face shields like medical personnel working in a COVID ward. They were certain that this would mean that the Secret Service would have to be quarantined. But then, there's been no indication of this either. Then, questions arose about whether he would ever be strong enough to be president again, and whether he would be stepping down just before the election. Wishful thinking. This afternoon, President Trump tweeted, "I will be leaving the great Walter Reed Medical Center today at 6:30 p.m. Feeling really good. Don't be afraid of COVID. Don't let it dominate your life. We have developed under the Trump administration some really great drugs and knowledge. I feel better than I did 20 years ago." Now, other than perhaps the last claim about feeling better, it seems to me that everything that he said is clearly appropriate. How dare the president suggest that people shouldn't be afraid of COVID? Doesn't he care about the 200,000 plus who have died? I was reminded that the Bible has variations of the term, "be not afraid," supposedly 365 times, one for every day of the year. Why was it inappropriate to tell the American people not to be afraid? From a scientific standpoint, some researchers are asking if stress, especially chronic stress, might be another pre-existing condition that makes COVID-19 infections worse. Our bodies have evolved to respond in a moment to stressful situations, both physical and emotional. This is called the fight or flight response, and it helps us to quickly respond in times of danger. But when this becomes a long-term response, these involuntary reactions can be harmful. Other researchers say an important feature of chronic stress is its instability, of not knowing when or where the stressor will end. The pandemic seems to fit this bill. Still others define it as the body's inability to return to a base level amounts of important hormones, often developing a new elevated normal for stress hormones, such as cortisol. Cortisol is an important part of the stress response, and new research suggests cortisol levels appear to impact the severity of COVID-19. There's still a lot we don't understand about the relationship between the two. For clinical trials of a COVID-19 treatment drug, dexamethasone, a drug that reduces the body's natural cortisol production as well as inflammation, has been found to help critically ill patients. So, to the surprise of many Trump haters, the claim by the president is accurate. Sadly, there are too many people in America who are hoping for failure in the health of our president, in the economy, and our opportunities for minority and women, and are disgusted when good news arrives. President Trump's Operation Warp Speed has brought about tremendous development in the vaccine options at a speed that has never in the world been seen before. Operation Warp Speed's goal is to produce and deliver 300 million doses of safe and effective vaccines, with the initial doses available by January 2021 as part of a broader strategy to accelerate the development, manufacturing, and distribution of COVID-19 vaccines, therapeutics, and diagnostics. Collectively, they're known as countermeasures. And as he's often pointed out, the development of these therapeutics have already brought great success. And it appears that the very therapeutics that he helped usher in have helped protect his life as well. The press is claiming that the president learns the dangers and hoping that he learns the dangers of not wearing a cloth mask, ignoring the actual data that cloth masks and even surgical masks do not protect the wearer from COVID, but rather serve to protect others when you have it. Only respiratory masks like N95s protect individuals from outside viruses. When a surgeon wears a surgical mask, he is attempting to protect his patient from getting anything that he or she has. To protect themselves from COVID, they wear respiratory masks and face shields for maximum protection. So claims that Trump is a super spreader is designed to be defamatory more than insightful. What can ultimately be learned through this process is that the American people have to learn to live within the risk of COVID, and that the therapeutics that are being developed help to minimize the risk to the American people. I saw something today that I thought was truly fascinating. In fact, I posted it on Facebook a few minutes ago. The average age of death for someone from COVID is 78 years old. And the life expectancy of an American is 78 years old. For the three things, I'm Gene Church.